There's never been a stronger correlation between sports performance and mental health than in today's modern age. If you don't believe me, here are some statistics that buttress my point. 2024 research from the National Institute of Health reports approximately 90% of college athletes and 70% of regular college students who experience mental health concerns do not receive adequate assistance and seek out support when they need an olive branch to lean on. For elite athletes, those statistics vary. However, contributing factors include stress, burnout, and eating disorders. Those individuals also do not regularly seek out treatment. Athletes today seem to be concerned with the stigma and the appearance of weakness if they seek out the help they need. However, there is one man on a mission to change that perception and give college and elite athletes the lifeline of support they need to succeed. That, my friends, is why I'm happy to bring you my conversation with my friend Jason Holzer. He's a mental health and skills coach, best-selling author, and speaker. He's on a mission to help student athletes, coaches, and professionals unlock unshakable resilience to thrive in life and in sports. Holzer says it's important to cultivate elite level mental fitness to overcome adversity and to achieve purpose driven success in life and in sports. He's also the co founder of 4D Leaders, where they're on a mission to develop confident, motivated, and empowered student athletes through personal growth and teaching essential life skills through sports. They help athletes to understand who they are and why their life matters through their unique online platform at Holzer. Join me this week to talk about the importance of mental health of college and student athletes and so much more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Jason, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program. And I'm super excited to learn about your journey in mental health and how you assist people to reach their fullest potential. Great to see you this morning, and happy Wednesday to you, my friend.
Well, happy Wednesday, Kevin. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here and dive into a great conversation.
Absolutely. Now, Jason, I know you're on a mission to address mental health concerns such as depression, suicide, and anxiety by leveraging sports to develop leaders to equip them through life's challenges, my friend. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about your work, my friend, and what makes you so fabulous.
Yeah, so I've been an educator for about 15 years now, a little bit over 15 years, coach for 16 years. And, through my own personal journey of loving sports and then also being affected by losing my dad to suicide, I've found as a purpose to blend those two and use sports as a way to truly help people understand the gift of life adversity, teamwork, all those character aspects, and even the mental health piece of it that can be taught through the great avenue of sports.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Jason, with over a decade and a half in education, I'm curious to ask you about your sort of approach and philosophy to developing young students and young student athletes into the best person they can be. So tell me about mentoring and making sure and nurturing today's students and student athletes, my friend. What do you think goes into that today?
The main thing, in my opinion, is building a relationship of trust and of compassion, right? Now, that means, there's a great saying that I love, like people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So it's fostering a sense of like I say, compassion towards others, and being able to give them honest feedback, but also in a way that's kind, and that also that they know that you're giving having these conversations with them because you believe in them, because you want them, because you know that they can do better, and meeting them where they're at too, I think is key as well. So that is one of the main components, in my opinion, is building the relationship first before you are able to teach any sort of lesson or develop any sort of child development.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And I know you're also the co-founder of 4D Leaders, my friend, an organization that's dedicated to cultivating confident, motivated, and empowered athletes who excel in leadership in all phases of life, my friend. So tell me about all the good work that you do through 4D Leaders, my friend.
Yeah, so that's been a startup that is piggybacked off of my education career, and there's just such a great um, opportunity for coaches, for parents to develop kids as leaders through sports. And Billy Graham said it best. He said, a coach will impact more lives in 1 year than many people will in their entire lives. So when we can help coaches understand, especially at the amateur youth levels, that they are an example, that they are somebody that kids look up to, and what example are we setting for them, and what are the things in coaching that we can do to help build those kids up, to help become the best version of themselves through sports, both when they're playing and when they're in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that part of your work also ensures that you help athletes identify with their true identity and purpose, my friend, and guiding them towards a mindset of achieving success with compassion, my friend. So tell me about helping athletes find their sense of identity coupled with resilience and authenticity, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
So yeah, I think it's helping people understand that sports is something that you do. It's not who you are. It's something that you go, and it can be a part of your life, but it's not all of your life. There's so many more things that we have gifts and talents for, and that's just one component. And when too many times I feel like people get too caught up in the things they do as who they are, and it's hard for them to see themselves as something else. But the truth is, everything that you're learning, you're developing through sports, through your careers, whatever it is simply setting you up to transition to whatever's next. So whether you play in high school, whether you play in college, whether you make it, the very few that make it to the pro level, regardless, sometime you're going to have to hang up the cleats, put the shoes away. Like, it's going to turn into a hobby or something that you just do for fun with other people. And you got to learn that there's something else out there for me, and that there's a bigger reason why I'm here than just to be involved in sports.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jason, you mentioned earlier about the loss of your dad when you were 17, my friend. So I'm curious if you can take me back to your 17-year-old self and when you reflect on that part or portion of your life, how has that impacted the person you are today? And what would be your message about overcoming adversity and using resilience as a teacher on how to do that, my friend? What are your thoughts then?
Yeah, when you're a kid and you rely on, a your parents to be your examples until you're old enough to start making your own way. It was a tough situation as a 17-year-old. I was in that cusp of like almost an adult, but not quite yet, right? And I think though, like the key thing for me was still making sure that you know, worked with my family. We stayed together. Um, even it was a very tough loss at the time, but practicing things like forgiveness and understanding as I got in my later 20s, after I got married and had my own kids, it helped me reflect on, when we go through the biggest challenges of our life, that also is the biggest lessons in our life. And I think one of the biggest lessons I've taken from it is the importance of taking care of yourself, not just physically, but also emotionally, mentally, and spiritually as well. And so that's led me on a path of continual prayer, continual, self-evaluation, examination. And that's been through different counseling, different therapies, different coaches, if you will, as well. Reading quite a bit, and it's helped me foster strong relationships with my own two kids because I understand that the importance of what I wish my dad would have known, and if he would have still been around, and how much more important it is for me to show my kids the examples of how to take care of yourself in all areas of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jason, I'm curious to ask you about the study that came out last year from the National Institute of Health. It says that 90% of student athletes who have a mental health concern and 70% of college athletes don't seek out mental health assistance when they're dealing with sort of that concern in their life, my friend. So I'm wondering your thoughts on those statistics and how we can create a better olive branch for athletes who need the assistance to not be afraid to ask for it, my friend. What are your thoughts then?
Yeah, I think it's having the environment where it's okay to not be at your 100% best every day, right? Like we are at our core, we're human beings, and we're not machines. We're not something that can just turn on a switch and then we just continually be consistent every time, right? So I would say even acknowledge like even if 80% is your 100% today, give yourself 80%. If you need to take a step back for a little bit, right? And in a healthy way too. Being able to fully express the things that are going on, and even sometimes, even whenever you're not feeling at your best, what are some ways that we can seek that resilience piece to, continue moving forward, even when it feels challenging, even when it feels tough, right? But also, I think it's important to take in mind rest and recovery. Like too many times, I feel like we don't allow ourselves to get the proper amount of rest and recovery, right? We are very busy. We are going from one thing to the next, and sometimes it's nice just to slow down and to give yourself a chance to just take a moment and pause. So I think all those factors come into it, and I think it's helping teach young athletes and young people in general how to have a cadence of knowing when it's go time, but also knowing when it's time to take a step back and relax as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Jason, I'm also curious to get your thoughts here. A couple of years ago, the NCAA back in 2023 released a study that said that the majority of American coaches today are devoting more time to addressing mental health. The study back then found that 80% of today's college coaches are concerned with the mental health and well-being of their student athletes, my friend. And I'm curious to ask you about your thoughts on that and how we can support coaches as they look to support athletes in their mental health journeys, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think that does get overlooked quite a bit because, as coaches, we are, uh, we are the grown adults, right? The one that's supposed to have seemingly everything figured out. And I think, sometimes as a coach, you can get caught up in that feeling of thinking that you have to have everything figured out. So, the important case is as a coach, like you want to build a great team of other coaches around you that help you, support you, that can give you some suggestions, give you thoughts. And even as the main decision maker, it's key to seek out, people's advice that you truly like admire and they're at places that you want to be at as well. So those are things I think that can help coaches is building that community, building that network of people that where you have outlets to go to, but you also have resources to help you become better and help you take care of yourself even better as well, right? So what does that look like? How does that work? And so that way you're not on burning on both ends of the candle, if you will, which leads to burnout eventually too. So sticking with your purpose and your passion of why we coach, and then having that great community around you to help support you are two main factors when it comes to coaches' well-being and mental health and self-care.
Yeah, and I'm also curious to ask you about mental health disorders and social isolation because the NIH also found last year that between 5 and 35% of college and elite performance athletes suffer from either a mental health disorder or social isolation, my friend. So again, I'm curious when we talk about looking for ways to support elite athletes through social isolation and peer pressure because no matter how talented you are going to experience failure as an athlete. So how do you think we can better support athletes through social isolation and their peer pressure journey as well? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, ironically, loneliness is a problem, and a lot of it has to do with technology, right? People have not been educated enough on how to use technology and specifically like our phones and devices in a healthy way where that helps you connect and get and meet up like in person, right? So too many things are done remote, or a lot more things are being done remote. Therefore, we're not spending as much time in physical spaces with each other. So that COVID also was kind of like the jump starter of that. So how do we get people back in similar physical spaces where they are connecting on a personal level, where they're learning, where they're conversating, where they're there's some sort of community again involvement right there as well. So I think it starts right there is getting people in physical spaces, helping them engage, helping them connect, making them feel like they belong. I think is a huge thing as well, just from a basic, survival standpoint, like whenever you feel like you belong to something bigger than yourself, that also has a huge impact on not feeling lonely, right? Feeling like you have other people around you, feeling like you're cared about. So those are some key things I think that really need to be emphasized more. And the great thing about sports is it can give you that platform because you do have to physically show up to play. You got to show up to practice. You got to show up and work together with people. That can't be done remotely, So I think that's one thing that we can use sports for is to help solve that loneliness. And one way is getting people in the same physical spaces working together and working through conflict and working through struggles and challenges together.
Yeah, and Jason, I'm also curious to ask you about the evolution of the coach-athlete relationship. Oftentimes, the coaches are only as good as the athletes they enter the field or court of play with, my friend. So I'm curious to ask you about how you think the evolution of the coach-athlete relationship has affected both sports performance and psychology today. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, there's been a lot of great coaches that have done a lot of great things, right? And I think, the key thing is again, it goes back to making sure players know that you care. And also letting them know that you're going to give them some insights that they're not going to always want to hear, but that they need to hear. I think it's a balance of being demanding, holding kids accountable, but also not being demeaning or fear based or getting them where they feel like if they make a mistake they're going to be out. Giving them the space to give their best effort to make mistakes, but also know that challenging them to become a better version of themselves at the same time. And that's a dance that takes a while to learn, right? You're going to make some mistakes as a coach along the way. I think when you do make mistakes as a coach, you let players know. You give them some insights. You're like, you know what, guys, I thought this was going to work. It didn't work how I wanted to, or I didn't think, so that one's on me, right? So showing them what taking responsibility looks like, and giving them some insights that, hey, we're all in this together. And it's not just me telling you what to do, it's us working as a cohesive group, and saying, hey, there's some times where I'm just going to have to make decisions because that's what's best for the group. But I also want to hear your insights, what you're seeing, so taking some of that input from them that make them feel like they have a voice, because whenever you can help them feel like they are also a part of it, it gives them a sense of that belonging that we talked about earlier and helps them buy in to what you want them to do as a coach too.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Jason, I know that you're the best-selling author of a book called "Shattered by Suicide," my friend, renewed by resilience, which was inspired by your own mental health journey and the journey you went on with your dad, my friend. So tell me about the book, why you wrote it, and what you learned about yourself through the process of writing the book. What do you want to share with people about that process, my friend?
Yeah, it was probably one of the most healing things I did because I wrote out the experience, and I wrote it in a way like, hey, look, this is what I experienced when I lost my dad to suicide at 17. And everybody's experiences are going to be a little bit different, but I wanted to be relatable. Like, hey, look, this happened to me, and it's happening to a lot of other people. But I also wanted to give people some insights. Like, hey, we also are responsible for our own health and well-being, and that means looking at the traumas or the challenges that have happened in our lives and facing them and finding ways to heal them so that way they don't become something that gets passed on to our next generation or that like it stops with me. And I think that I always wanted to inspire people to face the challenges ahead of them, right? And heal those wounds that we have from those traumatic experiences that we encounter, specifically things like losing somebody to suicide, or even if it's kids losing their parents. It can even be a car crash, right? It doesn't have to be specific to suicide, but I think that is one thing that I wanted to take away was yes, acknowledge the things that happen in life, accept them, but also accept that you have the power to make things better. And if you are a kid, right, you are hoping that you're around other grown-ups and adults that help get you the right help that you need, and the right support system so that way you can have a healthy strong adulthood too.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jason, I'm also curious to ask you about the role that cultural diversity plays in sports because, sports is the ultimate team game, no matter what sport you play. And I'm curious the role of coaches and authority figures in respecting, cultural diversity and experiences, and how that can be a competitive advantage when you're looking to connect with athletes and the overall team as well. What are your thoughts there?
I think it helps you when you learn other people's stories and you learn why they do what they do. it actually helps you better understand people. And when we better understand others, we judge them less, and we actually become closer. You build closer relationships, and you become stronger through that. Yeah, there's going to be disagreements. There's going to be things that people are going to see differently on. But I think when you can look past those differences and you meet a common goal of what's going to be the win for everyone, then you're able to work through those things better. You're able to see other people's perspectives better. And because of that, you care more about other people. And the more you care about people, you understand that, you know what, sometimes it's okay to disagree on things and go your own way whenever you feel like there's not something that's going to be able to be solved. But you also might open up an opportunity for people to see another side of things and realize, like, hey, you know what? You might see it one way and I might see it the other way, and we both could be actually right at the same time. It's like if one person was standing on one end of a number and another person was standing on another end. One person sees six, one person sees nine. They're both technically right. So I think sometimes in some situations, now not everyone, but there's ways where people can see things from two different perspectives and both be right about what they're seeing. And it's us having the humility and the empathy to better understand their perspective. And even if we disagree, have an understanding of, like, well, I can understand why you might feel that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Jason, I'm also curious to ask you, what steps do you think people can learn from everyday life when it comes to sports, whether you're an athlete or a regular person, about living a purpose-driven and having a clear vision of how you want your life to be defined and determined? So how do you think we can use the principles taught in sports to live a purpose-driven and a clear vision of our life? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, I think the first one is, like, have a plan, right? And having a plan just gives you a roadmap, and but also know that as you are executing a plan, be able to adjust and adapt. Being able to adjust and adapt is a key thing in sports and in life, right? So you have a plan, you are prepared, but you're also willing to pivot and adjust when necessary. And then also, like, following up and working with whenever things maybe don't go your way, or just continually, like, to build strong relationships with people, right? So I think those are the key things, is, like, following up with people, building strong relationships, having a plan, but also being able to adjust and adapt as necessary are three key elements that will help you in anything you do, sports, life in general. So that would be my advice on that.
Yeah, and to that point, I'm curious to also get your thoughts on what it means to maximize impactful moments. Because, I truly believe that we're all here on Earth to sort of contribute to the conversation of progress, my friend. So, what does maximizing the moment mean to you in both athletics and life? And how do you think we can translate that into achieving inclusive success so that everyone can experience prosperity? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
I think it's giving more intention to your attention, right? So the more of what you focus on is more of what you get too, right? So I think it's being aware of, what am I giving my attention to, and am I giving my attention to the things that are going to bring me the most fulfillment, right? They're not always going to be the things that I want to do. They're not always going to be the most exciting things in the world. I think as long as we are continuing to find our purpose and to figure out what that is, it will help us lead a more fulfilling life, and a more fulfilling life leads to happiness.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Jason, earlier you talked about being the best dad, an example of for your own kids. That you can be my friend, and I'm wondering your thoughts on your message on what it takes to be an elite father today and really showing up for your kids. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
I think it's, just showing up, giving your best, but sharing your personal mistakes, sharing your when things didn't go your way, sharing the stories of your day with your kids. It helps them feel like, oh, well, when things don't go their way for them, or they mess up, or they make a mistake, like, oh wow, okay, like that also happens to my dad as well. So helping them, guide them through life's challenges, but also spending time with them on things that they like to do as well. And I'm talking about things like getting outdoors, or maybe it's playing games with them, or depending on what their ages are, uh, take interest in their interests. Like find out who they are and foster that, right? Foster that in a positive way that leads to positive outcomes for them. Like, hey, you know what? You seem to really like to draw and paint. You might have, if you keep practicing that or working at it, you could be a really good artist if you want to. Or if it's music, or if it's sports, or if it's, robotics, whatever it may be, like cultivating their interests. My oldest son has an interest in, like, he likes to build things. So I was like, okay. And he was like, can we build a tree house? And I was like, sure, we can figure it out. And, we went down the process of planning, building, and it was something that I had never thought about doing personally myself. But the cool thing about kids is they get you out of your comfort zone. They get you doing things that, well, I never thought of doing that before him. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jason, I'm also curious to ask you about the importance of teaching essential, essential life skills through sports and the lessons that athletes can learn through sports that they can apply to their own lives. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, it's things like growth mindset, unity, gratitude, being a leader, doing things to the best of your ability. All of those things translate to other things besides sports, right? So it's developing those character aspects and using sports as a vehicle to do that is a great way to help, teach those essential skills that are going to help them become successful regardless of what they do, and help them also handle any season of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And my friend, I've got three questions left for you. And the first of those three questions is this, my friend. If I asked you to describe the current state of sports psychology in America today and the psychology of today's athlete, how would you describe it, my friend? And what are you most optimistic about when it comes to the future psychology of today's athlete? And what are you most concerned with as well, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
I think it's something that is becoming more and more aware of, that it is a crucial part of success. Whether it's not just training physically, but it's also training emotionally, spiritually, mentally as well. And the exciting thing is that it's becoming more of a consistent norm that is being utilized, right? The concern is, like, do we have enough resources for the need that's out there, right? And how do we solve that problem of providing the resources, whether it's through mental skills coaches, whether it's through getting more people in psychology and doctor programs, whatever it may be. That would be my concern.
And what has you most optimistic about the future of sports psychology for young athletes today, my friend?
I think it's become more and more of a norm that, like, this is a good thing. Like, this is something that is, so there's been a lot of positivity and a lot more people becoming aware of how important it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, data from Healthline this year also reported, my friend, that between 30 and 60% of athletes are affected by, the issues of anxiety, depression, and other mental health uh, issues that affect their mental health or their sports and elite performance, my friend. So I'm wondering your thoughts on those statistics and what immediately comes to mind when you hear that information, my friend.
It's stat numbers are a great teller of the truth, right? And it just goes to show that the work needs to continue to be done. It needs to be continued to be prioritized. Whenever I hear stats like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a follow up to that, my friend. I'm also curious to get your opinion on eliminating bias in both sports and employment. And I'll give you a little background. So, Jason, I was born with cerebral palsy, and I found out at the age of 9 that I wouldn't be able to walk without assistance for the duration of my life. And when I graduated college, I graduated with a sports journalism degree, and I wasn't hired after going on 10 consecutive job interviews because at the time, news directors looked at my disability as a liability and they wouldn't hire me. So I became a speaker in part to talk about employment equality because of my own experience. But I'm curious to relate it back to sports. And how do you think executives can eliminate bias and really take people with disabilities as a competitive advantage as to their organization. So what are your thoughts on eliminating sports and bias in employment, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it's always good to be curious, right? And ask myself, what can I learn in this situation, right? What skills and abilities are we lacking that maybe people that have disabilities that could be strengths, you know? So I think it's being more reflective and it's better understanding like what my own personal biases are and also seeking the counsel of others and helping make sure decisions are made thoroughly and making sure that they're like, if a person is chosen, it's because of there's a systems check that makes sure that all biases are, looked at thoroughly and make sure that there's not biases to the best of their ability, that are being made, right? So I think that's something we got to keep in mind is, stay curious, and ask ourselves what can we learn in this situation, and what can people of all backgrounds, what talents and abilities can they bring that could help strengthen the team?
Yeah, absolutely. And, Jason, my final question for you has to do with your own personal and professional legacy, my friend, and how you want that to be defined.
Just as somebody that was trying to be of service to as many people as possible and to be somebody that, truly used the life that I've been blessed with to make other people's lives more enriching as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, Jason, tell me if people want to get connected with you, buddy. What's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, we got go to 4dleaders.com. That's the number 4, the letter D, leaders.com. And you can also check out my website at jasonholzer.com. So those are two places that you can check us out.
Fabulous, my friend. Well, I want to thank you for your commitment to enriching the lives of today's students and college athletes, my friend, and for engaging in conversation. You're really doing great work, my friend, and it was an honor and a privilege to engage in conversation. So I want to thank you for being here this morning. It's most appreciated.
Kevin, thank you for having me, man. It's been a great conversation. I'm inspired by people like yourselves that find a way, regardless of the challenges that life has given them. So keep up the good work yourself, man.